and welcome to the training module for the AMX Introduction. This introduction will go over the AMX panel, kind of the theory behind the panel, why we use it, and at the end of this video you can click on the quiz and take the quiz. You need to pass the quiz at 100% to make sure that you know the panel enough to move on to the next modules. When you walk into a DL classroom, the panel will be blank, more likely than not, kind of in a sleep mode. You will touch it to wake it up and you will come to this screen here. Then at that point you touch it and you will turn it on. Then you get this configuration. We have lots of different modes that we can bring the classroom up in. A local mode is clearly just using the room locally, not connecting anywhere, not to a distant site, not to another classroom. And then we have the instructor mode, where the instructor is teaching from the main campus classroom where you are located as the student tech assistant. And then we also have the student mode, where maybe the instructor is at a far site location. And what these choices enable us to do is to select that. The room then is configured, and so pieces of equipment that are used for one mode and not the other then won't turn on. So for instance, in instructor mode, you'll have the instructor TV turn on, and you will also have the instructor camera turn on. For student mode, those two pieces of equipment will not be powered on, thus saving electricity and usage hours on those particular pieces of equipment. Kind of long makes the life of them last a little longer. Also in instructor mode, then none of the cameras will switch on this way, again saving the life of those cameras as well. So 99% of the time you will select instructor mode if you are in a distance class. Usually the instructor is at our location, but that isn't always the case. Later in another module we will show you how to just restart the room, and I will briefly show you that button later on. But then that button will allow you to come back to this page here and then select between a different mode that you need to be in. So like I said, more times than not you will select instructor mode if you're in a distance connection, a local mode if you are not. Once that is selected, you will get this particular screen. This is the time the panel kind of freezes and will allow time for the parts of the room, the piece of equipment in the room, to turn on. Power on the projectors, that takes a little bit of time, and power on and talk to all of the other pieces in the room that we went over in the introduction to the DL room module. The DVD player, the document camera, the cameras for the students, the cameras for the instructor, the microphones, the TVs, you get the idea. This usually takes anywhere from 90 seconds to 2 minutes. It depends on what mode you have selected. The timing is a little bit longer depending on the pieces of equipment that need to be turned on. And so then when that is done, we can then get to this main navigation page of the AMX panel. We'll go over a little bit of the parts of the panel, and then we'll move on from there to the conclusion. So here you will see the media sources on the upper left part. We have the classroom computer, which is locally in the classroom, the laptop, which instructors can bring and cable into the pop-up box. And then the other different pieces of equipment, you will utilize a DVD player, the VCR, the document camera, the auxiliary pop-up. It kind of enables you to cable in another piece of equipment that is not in the room, say a laser disc player, a video camera. Maybe they're showing a movie from their vacations pertinent to the content. These camera buttons here, the video and camera buttons, we'll go over in a later module about them, but you're able to manipulate the camera angles to better suit the view for the far sight students. In the upper section here is the video destinations, and that is the smart board in the middle front of the the distance learning room. And then you have the front wall plasma, which are the TVs in the front of the room. That more likely than not will always stay the same, but sometimes you can switch those up. The instructor plasma, that's the one that hangs from the ceiling. As the instructor, you can see your students in the classroom as well as your students at the far site. And then this To Far Site button will allow you to select a media source and send it to the students at the far site. That is the theory behind the classroom. It's what you want to see, one of the media sources, what you want to see, and where you want to send it, the video destination. So it's what you want to see and where you want to see it. It's kind of anytime the instructor will ask you, can we do this? Then you stop, you think, what do I want to see? What do they want to use? And where do I want to see it? What students do need to see this? So as long as you think that through each time, select what you want to see and where you want to see it, 90% of the time you'll be A-OK on your selections. Then in the upper right-hand corner, just reminds you of what mode you're in. And again, that's important because that will depend on what pieces of equipment are turned on or turned off. And of course, always the number to call for help if you need that. Over here in the bottom left section on the side here is the outgoing video monitor that enables you to see what the far sites are seeing. Because if they're not seeing it, they're not getting the lesson that the other students in the main class are seeing. So that's a very good way to troubleshoot and check and make sure all of the students are seeing what they need to. This big section here enables you to, when you select a media source, it enables you to have the controls of that source. No remotes needed or anything like that. So if you select the DVD player, then you have all the DVD controls here in this area. The bottom area of this panel, you have the classroom controls, the volume and the mute. Those work for the audio that's coming into the classroom, coming out of the speakers in the front of the room. So any of your media source volume and the volume from the far site. So when we select this mute button here, that is actually muting the volume coming into the room, so we can't hear anything in our classroom. We are unable to mute ourselves going out, short of turning off the microphones. If other sites wanted to have their audio muted, they'd have to do that locally at their locations. This mic amp here in the bottom middle allows you to amplify the microphone of the instructor. So say you have a soft speaking instructor, they talk really slow, we can amplify that sound so the students in the classroom can hear it. Sometimes we have smaller classrooms, it's not so necessary. We have larger classrooms that seat 70, 100 students, and it may be necessary to amplify the instructor's volume to then be heard at the back of the room. And then here is the restart button I mentioned at the configuration page. If you select this button, it takes you back to this page here and allows you to restart in the mode that needs to be, or choosing or changing. Sometimes doing student presentations, you'll switch from instructor mode to student mode, and it allows those pieces of equipment to turn on and off for those modes. Going back to this page here, the main page, the last button here, the last thing to explain is the turn off room button, and that does exactly what you asked, what it says there. It will pop up another dialog box making sure that you want to do that and you weren't really restarting or you hit it on accident. It's really nice that it allows you to confirm that. Once the room turns off, it takes the same amount of time to turn off as it did to turn on in that configuration time frame. Just kind of powering everything down, letting projector lamps cool down, and that all has to happen before you're able to turn it on again, which makes the restart button that much more important because it's valuable classroom time that you are using to turn off the room to turn it back on again. So 3 to 5 minutes to do that, as opposed to just hitting the restart button and in about 60 30, 60 seconds, the room will be set right back to where you were. And then again, you can check this instructor mode at the top here. So that is an introduction to the AMX panel pages that we use. Again, the media sources is what you want to see, and the video destinations, where you want to see it. If you think that through, the theory behind the page, what you want to see, and where you want to see it, 90% of the time, you'll be able to handle anything the instructor asks. So if you have any questions, let me know. You will need to take the quiz here at the end of this module, pass that with 100%, and then that will open up the next module for you to go through. Have fun. Good luck on your quiz.